but brought home a bag soon. Owner opened and was horrified. Today, I will tell you two incredible stories. One happened in the U.S. and the other in Thailand. No doubt both will really leave you surprised. When we adopt a dog, our life almost always has a great change may wake up. With a variant language at dawn, even if you have to deal with those sofa swabbings and cojeans, if they are things that can happen, but you must also know that always you will have someone to advance in those cold nights, or someone who is waiting with that pure love every time. You get home, you will sometimes see dogs that we adopt can do things that we never expect many to believe. They are simply animals that are motivated, mainly when they are going to eat or go for a walk, but that does not mean that are not able to do things extraordinary and unpredictable. First case happened many years ago in 1,990 seconds. Man was a dog Labrador. Unfortunately to its owners, they left when he was a year old and was taken to an animal shelter to later sacrifice anyone I knew why they had left it there. I saw a healthy and very well-educated dog, but their owner left him alone and die despite a few days before. That past a couple of husbands had arrived at refuge to adopt some puppy. Was at that time that they listened to Norman during this visit. The couple learned of every wonder low that Norman passed, and that soon they were going to sacrifice to meet him and see his sweet black behavior. And her husband. They decided to take it home with them without, however, shortly after bringing Norman to house, began to notice that something not it. It was quite well after a greater research the veterinarian discovered that Norman was losing his eyes due to genetic conditions for a few years after Norman was completely blind. Their previous owners knew about this and would be the reason to abandon it. No one knows, however, despite not being normal, I-Don and #39T. Let that prevented being a faithful dog and having fun. Nor did he prevent him from doing what would be a miraculous feat later, and is that Norman did not allow his lack of vista stopped him, adapted well to his blindness, trusting their other senses. August 5, 1996. For some reason, Anik decided not to go to work and led to Norman to one of their favorite places. To have fun in Cancun, 7 is greater than she wanted to go to get distracted. And to that, your dog walks like this a bit. You will see the river is one of the holiday destinations more popular along the coast of Oregon. The mechanical river that leads to the ocean and seaside can become very dangerous during the low tide. No, it is more than a stream, but during the high tide looks like a bay and can have strong and unpredictable currents. Nothing was usually out of the common on your trips, but that day, something extraordinary later happened. Get to the place what caused that Anne ran back from him for fear that could be hurt. And that is that in another part, Louisa Levels of 15 years and its brother I have, like many others, families were visiting the river for. Their vacations were splashing and swimming in water when suddenly a strong current of the growing tide I entered and dragged beacons and more waters deep where they couldn't and #39T go out to spite. If a good swimmer could not help is less than B, 193 is greater than that. They ran from crawling under the smooth water, shouted asking for help every time he reappeared, but nobody could hear. His screams was alone, and now he was desperately tired about drowned Norman, who ran more than 140 meters. On the riverbank, he immersed himself in the water to help the dog, was Steam Laziza, and #39's frantic aid cry shouts that only a dog could hear him. Far away, quickly and powerfully towards. She was so exhausted in this pune, I could barely maintain the head out of water as your arm got tired. Began to swallow more and more water, and no longer. I could scream a time when there was only silence. Although the dog I was approaching without a voice, that Guiara Norman, was disoriented, down and began to swim in circles. In that instant, the owner of Norman finally, he knew what was happening and gave himself tell why Norman had escaped. "Shouts for my dog!" exclaimed the woman. "A, the teenager will help you. His name is Normal every time the girl." He went to the surface and with all the energy that was left shouted, "Norman!" The dog followed his voice, and finally he reached after teenager. "You grab Norman and #39's neck." They have written their name repeatedly to that. The adorable and brave puppy managed to swim to the shore. Norman saved Liza, swimming against the current with all your forces back to the shore, where the 2 is greater than was waiting Lisa, gave him a great eye hug, "You must be my angel of the guardian," said Lisa Ann responded to the woman. "I think it was normal." Sometime later in an interview, the teenager said, "Now I take the more serious things. I only know that my life, it is important because if it weren't and #39 T, I would be here now. Cyan, I would have gone to normal. Work would not have been in that river that day. And if normal, no, I would have lost his eyes for a couple of years. Before your audition would not have refined precisely to listen to the cry of Lisa about the sound of the Flow River. No one is sure why Norman acted in the way that day, but there is a safe thing. There is a person who is always grateful for that blind and hairy angel that saved him life, and that person is called Smooth the Lisa Joy, and #39's brother, who was too caught in the current at that time, managed to swim back to the shore. But as well as the sight, they do that without B1000. 157 is greater than. Doubt will surprise you even more. The second case is an amazing example of what you can make a loved dog a family. In Thailand, he learned this firsthand but he returned from a walk pulling a bag in his mouth when Gulner Tom Mann adopted a puppy whom he called PU, and he did not realize the amazing series of events that would happen in some months will be after being adopted. As Pui grew and he was allowed go out of the neighborhoods of 69 is greater than Bangkok where Gunnar and his family lived. With the passage of time, the dog was made known as a guard dog for everything. The neighborhood and was playful with the children. Everything was fine until one day something amazing happened. Turns out that the owner and #39's niece observed that the dog I was anxious to want to get out of the sudden house began to bark and howl. His aunt told him that the niece wanted to go out in an interview acted strange, so let the dog go EU directly to dump. That was a few meters away was something I'd never done before. They were fed at home, so was a need to search between garbage. After a few minutes, he took out a strange plastic bag the adolescent I didn't, and #39 T observed, and he noticed that it was very rare for the dog I did that maybe it was food. I was very confused, but soon he observed that the CA returned home with that bag. Yes, even though it was a dog, Little could drag her at the door. He put himself next to the bag and began to barking. Was obvious that I was calling the attention the niece, who noticed that behavior, decided to call his uncle, so that inspection the content of the bag and #39's, where owner realized that his beloved puppy was a hero. That is because within the bag was a little baby. The niece, her uncle, and aunt were horrified by such terrible act of cruelty and immediately lettered a 1207 is greater than nearest hospital, where they discovered that he was born at 7 months of pregnancy, was a very premature baby. Only I thought 1.5 kilos was clear that someone had left him there to die. But thanks to the different Puig, he had an opportunity to honor Puig. Because of its good action, the hospital donated a new necklace and a medal. In addition, Volnera and his family received a $300 award. Why? The baby to the hospital, unfortunately, not. There was information about the identity of the mother of the infant. The authorities suspect that it could have been a teenager who worked in a factory local, but they had not done any identification or arrest in the case of the police general. Lieutenant and ex-assigns are, as the local newspaper said, that researchers are still working in both the family of Puig, Can, and #Thrennen. T still believe how their dog knew there was a baby in danger. Is a luck that little wee I found. The baby was a surprise for us since he could, and I never brought something home, only boarded strangers when he was outside, explained. Google and #39's wife without. However, this amazing story of rescue did not stop there once the baby was good enough. To leave the hospital, Gulner and his family learned adopt her and turn her into her daughter just. When I thought a story could not improve, this family had to go and do something incredible like this. Adoption is something wonderful. We're truly amazing people and not. It was surprising that even your dog, it was a hero. If he had not been endowed, maybe that baby would have passed unnoticed and had a sad final mite. Think that dogs are ordinary creatures, but you can and #39T. To deny that what he did was normal was really exceptional and heroic, not. You believe that a beloved dog is capable of doing incredibly miraculous things. I hope this video has helped you be like this. Do not hesitate to give us a thumb above and share I and #39. Am liked. Thank you very much. For visualizing us, by the way, I invite you to subscribe to this channel if still you are not, and activates the bell notifications to receive the latest that we go up to next.